Hi there. Let me sit back for a moment so that you can see me. Today we're going to be doing some restorative yoga practices. All these poses are going to be lying down, supported, comfortable. Restorative yoga is great for everybody. I love restorative yoga. I'm trained to teach it. I've been a student of restorative yoga for years, and I had a couple of really great restorative yoga teachers in the Oakland area, so I attribute a lot of what I've learned to those lovely ladies. Restorative yoga is great for everybody. So we're all stressed out. We all have different things going on physically with our bodies, emotionally, mentally. Most of us are running on empty. A lot of us are in adrenal fatigue, exhausted. We might not even know it. So restorative yoga can help to build that back up, to get those adrenals back into a healthier place with our practice. Yoga, eating healthy, drinking lots of water, all of that is great, but I feel like restorative yoga even takes us another step closer to being healthier. And we all need a variety of things in our lives to create a healthy lifestyle. So today, the props that we're going to need are 3 blankets. So I advise, if you don't happen to have Mexican blankets at your house, that you use good big bath towels, at least 2 of them. Bath towel or even a swim towel or beach towel. The third towel or the third blanket can just be any blanket that you have. This will help to keep you warm, because when we practice restorative yoga, our body temperatures do drop. We want to make sure we're warm. So you can wear socks, you can have long sleeves on, whatever you need, because you cannot physiologically relax if you're cold, if you're uncomfortable, if your body is uneven. There are various things that we need to make sure that these all work for us in our restorative yoga practice. I'm going to use my 3 Mexican blankets, but maybe you find what's best for you. I'm sitting on one right now. That's best for me to sit on when I'm in a seated pose like I am right now. That helps me to sit tall and allows that my pelvis doesn't tuck under the body here. And even though restorative yoga is a passive practice, you still have to be mindful of your body in everything that we do. So you're responsible for your yoga practice today. I'm going to give you guidance and tips and suggestions, but I'm not physically with you there either, so you need to find out if you're comfortable. You need to make an adjustment. Sometimes it's just a little adjustment up or down with the prop, with the blanket or the towel, that will make a big difference. And sometimes it's just you getting out of the yoga pose. That's totally acceptable. You honor your body today. You modify anything that you need to, and again, come out of a pose if that's necessary for you today. Don't force your body into any pose, even though you know, I'm supposed to be relaxing, this is supposed to be comfortable. If it isn't, make an adjustment or come out. If it doesn't feel okay, pay attention to that. So how I'm going to do the practice today is I'm going to show you the poses, I'm going to show you how to set it up, and I'm going to show you how to come out. We're not going to hold them, because most of these poses should probably be held for at least 5 minutes, some even longer. If you feel good, you hold them longer. If you need to hold them less, you hold them less. So what I'm going to do is set you up in the pose, show you the setup, stay there for a breath or 2, and I'm going to show you how to come out of the pose properly. So what I advise you to do is have a timer with you so that you can time your own timing in each pose. You could use your phone, you could use kitchen timer, anything that would work for you to set that up, so that in case you do fall asleep, you're alerted when it's time to come out, that you're also not wondering, how long have I been in this pose and it's been 2 minutes or 30 seconds when you want to hold for 5 or 10 minutes. All right, so let's get started. The first pose that we're going to do today is the heart opener. So I will show you how to set up. We'll stay here for a few rounds of breath. Once you understand setup, you will pause the video. You'll do your pose. I recommend 5 minutes for the heart opener. Some people can do more, some people can do less. Then I'll show you how to come out of the pose. For this, we just need 1 blanket. So I have 3 here. I'm going to set these aside. Let me just move them out of the way so they're not really in the camera bothering us. I'm going to take my 1 blanket here, and I'm going to start in this big of a width of my blanket. So it's still partially folded. For some of you, it's going to be different. So for everybody, the rolls are going to be different depending on what our bodies are capable of handling. This is a restorative pose, so it's going to be a little bit more comfortable. If you've done the heart opener with me before in class, it can be a pretty intense pose, and it can even be intense with a blanket, so keep that in mind. For me, rolling this blanket up about halfway is what is going to work for me in my body. So I start to roll it up about halfway. This other part of the blanket will be padding for my head, but we don't want anything major under the head because we want to have the neck relax. But if you do need a little bit more support, then you can fold that blanket under. Or if you're using a beach towel or something like that, maybe you fold the beach towel, but make sure it's under your head. It's not jammed up under the neck. Setting my roll up. The roll is going to go under the lower tips of your shoulder blades, which are a little bit below your armpit. If you wear a bra, it's where the strap of the bra goes. That'll give you an idea of where it should be. I come and I sit in front of my roll. My knees are bent. My feet are on the floor or the mat. I'm not using a mat today since I am just lying around, and my carpet is pretty comfortable. If you are on a hardwood floor or some kind of hard flooring, you probably want to have your yoga mat, and you could even have a fourth blanket and put that on top of the mat so that you feel comfortable, and it also helps to create some warmth because hardwood floors and other hard floors can get cold, especially in the winter. So I come to lie back down on my roll, getting the lower tips of my shoulder blades onto the roll. That means that my arms can easily come above the roll. I come to lie down here. I'm okay here with my head and neck in this position, but if this bothers you too much, then maybe fold that blanket or put another towel or blanket under your head. If it's okay and it feels comfortable here, then you can allow your head to just rest. My arms are either out to the sides, my hands can be on the chest, the belly, anywhere that's comfortable. You decide if the knees stay bent or the feet and legs go long on the mat. If this bothers the low back at all, then you'll bend the knees again, bringing your feet to the mat. We're opening up our chest area here, so we're bringing our bodies into extension. Think of a back bend. So this spot where the roll is, that's the root of our neck. That's where our back bends come from, and that's where we all tend to be pretty sticky and tight in our thoracic spine. For me, it's best to keep my knees bent, so I'll bend my knees again. We'll close our eyes or have a soft gaze. I've shown you setup, so when you're ready, you can pause the video, taking your time in this pose. I recommend about 5 minutes. I recommend 5 minutes for all the poses here. You can always do longer, and of course you can do less, but to maximize the poses, 5 minutes is ideal. To come out of this pose, I'm going to roll over to one side in the fetal position, rolling off of the roll. So we don't want to disturb the neck and all the stuff that's happened into the parasympathetic nervous system because we're starting to calm down. And then with the strength of my hands and arms, I'll press myself up. Bringing my head up last, coming back up to seated. After each pose, I like to take a moment to just sit, check in, see how you're feeling. Typically in this pose, you may feel more open, you may feel taller, you may feel a little vulnerable as well because we were opening that chest up, making ourselves vulnerable. If that's happening to you, you can just place your hands on your chest. You could take one of the blankets and put it on your chest as well. Sometimes a little bit of weight can take that away. The next pose we're going to do is a supported child's pose or pill bug. If child's pose is pretty tough on the knees, then pill bug may be a better option. So I'm going to show you both poses. You can decide which one you want to do. Pill bug, we don't hold it as long. Even in my longer classes, I tend to have my students hold it for about 3 minutes. So that's totally fine, or just a minute or two. I'm going to roll up one of the blankets here, and we're going to have this act as a bolster. For some of you, using a second blanket may be appropriate, folding it up in this position. I'm actually going to do my child's pose this way so that you can see me from my side profile. So child's pose legs, the knees are as wide as is comfortable for you. The big toes touch or come close together. We sit back on our heels. This is where this might be an issue for some of you. So the second blanket can help. We can put it between the sit bones and the heels, and that gives you a little height. You could put another one here if you need more height. The second blanket is going to be close to the pelvis. I want to make sure it's long enough that when I come to lie down, my head is supported. My chest is forward, and I come to lie down on my blanket. Once I'm here, I decide which way the head and neck turn. I'm going to bring my arms down a little bit more. I'm going to come to lie down over my roll. Relaxing the arms. At some point, if you need to turn the head to the other side, you can. Holding this for 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes. The best way to come out is we bring those arms back, hands back under the shoulders, press up. Sit on up. If you have something under the sit bones, you move that out of the way, coming to a seat again. If you decide that that's too intense, we can come into pill bug. So it's child's pose, but on our back. We keep that roll. I come to lie down, knees bent, feet on the mat. I take my roll and I place it on top of my belly. So it's up to you. With the roll, this is a little bit harder than using what we do with a typical bolster. This may be comfortable for you to wrap your legs and your arms around this. It's more active, that's why we only hold it for about 3 minutes. If this is too much for the legs, they can stay down, knees bent, feet on the mat, and you can just hug the roll here. So you're still getting that closing up sensation, like you're hugging something, coming into that position. You can always make adjustments in this one. About 3 minutes we hold here. There are a couple of ways you can come out. You could leave the roll here and roll over to the side with it. Press yourself back up. Or you move the roll out of the way first, and then you roll over to one side. Strength of the hands and arms, press yourselves up to seated. That's child's pose or pill bug. The next pose we're going to do is supported bridge. If you've been in my active classes, this is a pose I do almost every single class that I teach. If we don't do it, it's usually because we're running out of time, and so I have to skip some poses near the end of class. I'm going to fold this blanket up into the spot where I usually sit on it. So this is a good spot for me. It may not be for you. Maybe you need less, maybe you need more. And getting it under the body is a little bit hard because we don't want, as we pull it, for it to get all crunched up. So we do the best that we can. Again, I come to lie down, knees bent, feet on the mat. Nothing under the head this time. To keep the natural curve of the neck. My feet are hip distance apart, a little bit in front of my knees. I press my feet into the mat. I lift my hips up. I slide this blanket under my hips. So I want to support the sacrum, the tailbone, and a little bit of the low back here. If this doesn't feel okay, then you move it up or down a little, finding that best spot for you. Setting those hips back down on the blanket. Arms are either out to the side, hands on the chest, the belly. Make sure that you are comfortable. 5 minutes here. You feel like when I am in this pose, I start to really relax and my knees start to splay out to the sides. Some people have a strap. You can actually wrap it around your thighs so that your legs can rest into the strap and you don't actually have to hold your legs up. But you can also separate your feet a little wider and have the knees fall into each other. And then you're no longer worrying about them holding up or if they start to fall over to the sides. Closing your eyes or having a soft gaze. Holding this for 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes. When it's time to come out, you'll bring those knees back up. The feet will come back to hip distance apart. I press my feet into the mat. I lift my hips up, sliding that blanket out of the way. The hips come back down to the mat. Rolling over to one side. Strength of the hands and arms. Press yourselves up to seated. Head comes up last. So if you notice, I'm never putting my body over on top of a prop or twisting onto it. We move it out of the way and then come out of the pose. That keeps the body safe. Rolling over to one side, slowly coming up, bringing up the head last, keeps that calmness that we're creating. If we just sit up and sit forward, all of this nice stuff we're doing to our parasympathetic nervous system may go away. So we want to keep that calm as long as we can. The next pose we're going to do is a recline twist. We're going to use this blanket again. You may decide that you don't want the blanket, but it's nice as a cushion in between the legs. If you decide that you need something under your bottom knee, you can also use another blanket. And for here, I'm going to have a second blanket under my head because we can have that here. Actually, just so you can see, I'll use all the blankets for this pose. Again, lying down so that my head and neck are supported by this blanket as a pillow. I'm going to take another blanket. And you decide, I'm going to put it between my knees here, my knees and my ankles. So it might be a little weird to get it there. And then the second blanket is going to support my knees as I come down. Arms come out to the sides. And I'm going to start to bring my knees over to one side, coming into a reclined twist. If you decide that you need to adjust the blankets, you do. Again, arms are either out to the side, hands on the chest, the belly, maybe a hand is on the knees. Your head can be up toward the ceiling, or maybe you start to turn your head and neck in the opposite direction of your knees, making sure you feel comfortable here. The higher your knees are, the lower you feel this twist in your back. The lower your knees are, the higher you do. So you may need to adjust that. Three to 5 minutes holding this. And then typically how I come to the other side is I come back to center and then roll over, bringing the knees over to the other side, coming into the twist. One side of the body may be different than the other, so maybe you need to adjust the arms. You come into a twist. You can always come into cactus arms, having them wherever is comfortable for you. If it's really difficult for you to be in this big of a twist, you can always roll over here and come more into a fetal position, which can be comfortable for the body. You can decide where the hands and arms go. This is always an option as well. Since I'm over to the side, I'm going to press myself back up to seated, bringing my head up last once again. Removing that. So you're going to do both sides. You do 3 to 5 minutes on one side, then you adjust yourself, bringing yourself into the reclined twist over to the other side. You decide how you do. You could sit up, come out, come back to constructive rest, and go to the second side, or you can just bring those knees back to center with the blanket between the knees, roll over to the other side, moving. If you're using a blanket under your knees for support, you can move that blanket over to the other side. The next pose we're going to do is legs up the wall. I have a love-hate relationship with legs up the wall. Sometimes I love it, and sometimes I don't. It's great for insomnia, anxiety, jet lag. So if you travel a lot, you're traveling to Europe, somewhere far away, even the time change this weekend that's happening. You all know that we're springing forward. In most of the U.S., my Arizona family and friends, we will be on the same time on Sunday. So time change can be a big deal, so restorative practice can be really lovely for that as well. Any sort of transition. Restorative yoga is good at any time. If you need to feel energized, if you need to calm down, if you're stressed, if you have anxiety, it's truly an amazing thing that really helps you. I feel it for myself. I've had many students tell me how much better they feel after a restorative practice. Legs up the wall is exactly how it sounds. So make sure that you have enough space that you can come into this position. For me, I do like to have support under my sacrum, my pelvis, and my hips. You may not need this. A lot of my students do not use anything under their body. I prefer something under it. After a while, my low back starts to bother me. So it's important for me to have something here. It's a little bit like our supported bridge, so we don't want anything under the head. If you need a little bit of cushion under the head, you can use a very thin amount of blanket. So you could use a little bit of your towel or whatever it is you're using as your blankets. But we don't want it bunched up, or we don't want it like a pillow. So you bring your hips as close as you can to the wall. And the first few times you do this, you're probably not going to make it. That's okay. It does not matter how close your hips are to the wall. That's a question I get a lot. My teacher Vicky used to say if she had a nickel for every time, she'd be like a millionaire. It doesn't matter, because if you have tight hamstrings or tight other stuff going on, your butt is not going to be close to the wall. So I bring those hips close. I fling my legs up. My feet and ankles, or my feet and heels, are against the wall. Resting the head down. I do want support under me, so I'm going to bend my knees, press my feet into the wall. I'm going to lift my hips up and I'm going to slide that under the body, supporting the sacrum, the tailbone, a little bit in the low back. Legs come back up. Arms on the belly, the chest out to the side. For some of us, for me, this happens rather quickly, that my knee or my legs start to fall asleep. If that happens to you and it doesn't bother you, you can stay here. If it does bother you, you can bring the soles of your feet together and your knees out to the side. That can help to eliminate some of that. 3 to 5 minutes here. Longer if you'd like, of course. Come out, pressing the feet into the wall. If you have something under your body, if you don't, then you ignore that part, but you still bend your knees, feet to the wall. We roll over to one side. Strength of your hands and arms, pressing yourselves back up to seated again. Coming up for a moment. So between each restorative pose, we check in to see how we're feeling. You probably feel a lot different than from when you first started this practice with me. We do the heart opener, the very first pose that we did in my classes a lot, whether we do the more active version or the restorative version. And pretty much every single student looks like they just got up from a nap after they come out of that pose. It's pretty amazing. So it's time for Shavasana, or final relaxation pose, how we end all of our yoga practices, at least in my classes. You want to be comfortable. So this is your pose that you want to do to end class. I'm going to give you kind of more traditional Shavasana to set up in. How I traditionally do Shavasana in love, so I call it ultimate Shavasana. If you decide that one of the other poses we did is best, or you just want to lie flat on the floor or the mat, you're welcome to do that. I'm going to take one of my blankets and I'm going to roll it up. This is going to be my bolster to go under my knees. Another blanket is going to be folded like a pillow to go under my head. Losing my microphone here for the crazy legs up the wall. Folded nicely, no wrinkles, no bumps. Princess and the Pea. My students know how crazy I am about blankets. I want you to be comfortable. You can't relax if you aren't comfortable, if you're uneven. I come to lie down here. Knees are bent, feet are on the mat. I'm going to come back down. My head resting on the pillow, the blanket pillow. I'm going to move this because I'm going to need it in a moment. Then I'm going to take my roll. It's difficult to do here. Make sure that my knees are supported. My head is supported, my knee is supported. This is great if you have low back issues. If it's uncomfortable, just lie on a floor. Sometimes for a lot of us that is not comfortable. And then maybe you're feeling cool. This is where you could put a fleece on, your socks, an extra blanket. You could turn the lights out for this as well. I have lights on so that you can see me, but all of these poses you could do in the dark, and actually, for me personally, I think that's much better. Again, arms are either out to the side, hands on the chest, the belly, anywhere that's comfortable. We check in here, maybe do any wiggling, adjusting the shoulders, the feet, the hips, the arms. Then we want to make our way to stillness. Make sure that you're not touching anything you're not using for your props. If you are, that'll keep the mind active, so slide them out of the way. Allowing the body to unwind. The mind, the body, and the breath feel supported. The breath will come to a natural state here. It'll slow down. If you can hold this for 5 minutes, that is great. If you can do it for even longer, When I have time in my home practice, my active home practice, I traditionally do a 10-minute Shavasana for myself. In my classes that are longer than an hour, I try to do at least an 8-minute Shavasana. Sometimes it's a little longer. You'll set your timer. 5, 7, 8, 10 minutes. When your timer goes off, you'll start to deepen your breath. A couple rounds of breath. Nice deep inhale. Releasing the exhale. One more inhale. Exhale. We'll make some small movements in the body. Your fingers, your toes start to move around a little bit. Hands and feet. Making any bigger movements in your body that would feel good for you. Stretching. Maybe giving that body full body wiggle. Moving the head and neck side to side. When you're ready, you'll bend your knees, bringing your feet to that roll, to the floor, to the mat. Again, roll over to your side in the fetal position. Take a few rounds of breath here. With the strength of our hands and arms, we'll press ourselves back up to seated, bringing your head up last. Finding a comfortable seated position. That means getting a blanket, refolding it. Please do it. You want to have the blanket on you because you're a little cool. That's awesome as well. Taking a moment here to check in. Mind, body, breath. We'll bring our hands together at heart center in Anjali Mudra. Keep peace in the mind, strength in the body, and love in the heart. We end our practice by saying Namaste, which means the teacher in me honors the teacher in you. Namaste. Thank you so much for practicing restorative yoga with me today. Know that you can do one of the poses, you can do all of the poses, you can pick and choose what are your favorites. I wanted to pick poses that were easy to do at home, even if you didn't have yoga props. There's some amazing things you can do, stuff you can do. I have bolsters, I have lots of blankets, I have sandbags, I have eye pillows, but I wanted to do a practice that I know you could do at home with things that you have. You have a floor, hopefully. And you also should have some sort of blankets or towels that can work. You just have to be mindful of the blankets because some blankets are lumpy. That's why I really like to use these because they're very easy to fold. You can get the wrinkles out. So if you have one of those lumpy big blankets, you use that to cover you up and then you use the other ones for our actual support. So I hope you have a lovely day. Please let me know if you have any comments, questions, feedback. I'd love to hear from you. You can email me at ann@gofitgirl.com. You can find me on Twitter and Facebook as GoFitGirl and on Instagram as The Real GoFitGirl. I hope you have a lovely day and I hope to see you soon. Thank you so much. Bye.